Ooh, so amazing. Hi, Brigitte, Akari. Oh, so good. Okay, we are live. We are live. That's amazing. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm just going to be streaming on two platforms. Oh, perfect. That's so much better. Hello, hello, hello. Keep joining, keep joining. Okay. Super excited to be here with you today. Let me know where you guys are from. Let me put this in the chat. Let me know where everybody is coming from. I would love to know. Are you guys from Indonesia? Are you guys from? Well, I don't know where are you guys from? I'd love to know. And for those on YouTube as well, please let me know where you guys are from and put it in the chat. Let me know where you are joining from. Okay. So this is amazing. Okay, as you know, this is our live that we do once every month. Okay, and it's always the last Thursday of every month. Okay, so it's always the last Thursday of every month. It's from 8 to 8:30 WIB. Okay, so Western Indonesian time, and we always talk about one topic, which is we talk about limiting beliefs. Okay, so we always talk about limiting beliefs and how we can grow. Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Okay, so I don't just continue and obviously you can't hear anything I'm saying. um, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just switching between two screens. But the topic today that we're going to talk about is very juicy, very, very juicy. And I'm really excited to share all I've learned. And also at the end, we're going to be sharing an exciting announcement as well. Um, okay, we'll be sharing an exciting announcement, so that will be very interesting. Of course, if you want to make, I just put, if you want to make a small contribution of any sort, please feel free. Okay. Yeah, we want to make this a safe space and a safe place. Okay, so any contributions, they're helping a lot. But again, I think it's more important that you guys are here. Okay, and that you guys are gaining from what we're talking about today. Amazing. I'm so excited. So excited. Okay, before we start, are there any comments in the chat? Any comments in the chat? I think, oh, so far all good. So far everything is safe, as they say in Indonesian, aman. Everything is aman. But if you have any questions, in fact, let me just, this is important that I want to mention a few things so that you know. Yeah, so that you know, of course, what's kind of the culture we're trying to build in these lives. Okay. Um, yeah, but of course, as I have said before, this is a safe place we're trying to build. And so please, um, yeah, know that this is the goal behind what we're trying to build here. I would say if you have any questions, please obviously put them in the chat. Okay, so would love to, um, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them towards the end. Okay, so if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Okay, the other thing that's important that I wanted to add as well is yeah, if those of you that don't know, my name is Radoslav. Okay, I'm a young adult, as you can see, and I'm in Indonesia. I'm super passionate to talk about limiting beliefs and super passionate to talk about, yeah, how we can really become people who don't have any like limitations. Okay, that will really grow into the people that we want to become. Okay. Because I'm a young adult, these lives, of course, they're for everybody, right? But I really focus on speaking to young adults. Okay, when I say young adults, I'm thinking between the age of 22 to 34. Okay, who are willing to grow and overcome, their limiting beliefs. We all have thoughts that have been formed from our experiences and our surroundings, and we want those thoughts to be the fuel for growth and not chains that hold us back. Okay, so each month we'll be covering a limiting belief that is holding us back to fulfilling our God-given purpose. And this platform is for everybody, whether you're Indonesian, whether you're American, whether you're Bulgarian, whether you're French, Australian, you're all welcome to join. Having said that, I will be doing future projects that will be focusing more so on to Indonesians, right? Because I'm actually based in Indonesia, so I want to create really some resources and really focus on the Indonesian people, okay? And in this journey, we don't make excuses, okay? But we put the work in to grow, because growth requires work, okay? So in these lives, we're going to be doing the work, okay? Because we want to become a better version of who we are. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist, I should say. I have been a client for 3 years now, and everything that I share is from experience, from professional scientific understanding. So I hope you can give me some grace regarding that. Again, we want to create this platform, TikTok platform and YouTube at the moment, as a safe space where we can feel, people can feel yourselves, and obviously me, that we can be honest and share about our life. Okay, so we foster an environment of mutual respect and zero judgment. Okay, so anything that we say stays in this life. Okay, in addition, if you'd like to give support to the channel, okay, you can do so. I added some, you can do so with the coins. I think the TikTok can give coins, right? So if you want to do that, please feel free. Again, every contribution is to make this place a safe space, right? We need a safe space, okay? And I think the online world, with so much going on, we want to create something special here. And that starts with you, okay, the viewers. If you have any questions, as I said before, please put them in the chat, and towards the end of the live, I'll make sure to engage and I'll make sure to answer as many questions as I can. So nothing is off limits. Please put it in the chat, right? If you have any questions while we're sharing the topic and we're discussing, please do so. Again, this is a safe place. Okay, we've come to the moment. Okay, we've come to the moment. And today we are going to be talking about our topic. Okay. Oh, how do we introduce this topic? I don't know. Okay. But what we're going to talk about today is this. We're going to talk about something that I did something quite interesting with this topic. Okay, I'm going to share with you later what that is. But we're going to talk about grief. Okay, yes, you heard me right. We are going to talk about grief, and more specifically, that grief is not for the weak. Or is it? Okay, so this is the question we're going to talk about. Is grief for the weak, or is it not? Okay, and I think there's so many misconceptions when we talk about grief. And I'm just going to put a chat, is grief for the week? Okay, is grief for the week? That's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm just curious, for those of you that are in the chat, right? For those of you that are just joining, I want you to type in the chat, right? Give me an indication, give me a thumbs up, give me an emoji, give me whatever, give me a text, give me something, right? What do you think is grief? Okay, what do you think is grief? Let me know. And again, I'm sorry if I'm looking on the left because I have my YouTube live here, okay, and I'm kind of engaging in both digital spaces. But what is grief, right? What is grief? Okay. What is grief? I think that we often think that grief is it's really something to do with something very traumatizing, right? That grief is really something that's very traumatizing, and it's something that, in a sense, affects and impacts us in significant ways. And oftentimes it's seen as something negative, and it's understandable because of all the compilation of emotions that takes place in grief. But if I can offer something that, again, everything I say is from, as I said before, is from experience. But I think grief is an emotion, right? And in fact, I think it's a roller coaster. of emotions, right? The grief is not simply one emotion, but it's a roller coaster of emotions that takes place when we lose someone or something. Okay? Grief is a collection, right, of emotions, and we feel a wide range of emotions when we experience grief, right? So imagine this in a spectrum. You can go and feel from all the way from super joyful, super happy one day to feeling like you don't know which planet you're on next day. Literally, when you experience grief, you can really just experience like this whole spectrum. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to engage Kadi. Hi, Kadi. Am I a teacher? I am a teacher, actually, yes. Well, I teach in a local school. I am a teacher. But just to answer your question. But as I said, the topic that the limiting beliefs we cover in these lives, as I said before, is once every month. I wouldn't say I'm a professional, but I share from my experience, right? And I mentioned this at the beginning of the chat, just of the life, just to ensure that obviously I don't want to mislead anybody. And obviously everything I say, you should fact check. You should go to a professional counselor or therapist to check what I say. But I make these lives with a goal of helping young adults to overcome the limiting beliefs that we have in our minds, right? And so what we're talking today, as I mentioned before, is grief. Okay, we're talking about grief. Grief is part of life. I know you may be thinking, well, that's very encouraging. Grief is part of life. We all experience grief in different ways. We all experience grief in sometimes in big and dramatic and really very sad ways. And sometimes we experience grief in small things. And we're going to explore what these are and the ways that and how we experience grief and the ways to experience grief. But we have to say, like, it is part of this life that we live here, right? Grief is part of this life, and we cannot escape it. We cannot we can be the best person in the world and we still experience grief, right? Why is that the case? Like, why do we experience grief even if we do good and even if we do everything right, and we are still experiencing this collection of emotions that makes us sad and makes us, in different ways. And I think it's because we live in a world where there is evil going on, right? We live in a world where there is evil going on, and in fact, a broken world, right? We live in a broken world, and broken people hurt other people, right? And so the reason why there's so much grief in the world, and the reason why we cannot escape it either, is because we live in a broken world where, unfortunately, broken people hurt people. Grief can be experienced in many different ways, right? And the scale of how we experience grief can vary. And I just think that we need to talk about it, especially to young adults, because sometimes there's this misconception that if I experience grief and I don't, and the other thing is, I don't show that I experience grief, this is somehow that I'm being tough or I'm being strong. But if I experience grief and I show that I'm experiencing grief, it's as if somehow I'm weak and I'm not good enough and all those things. And it's like, um, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Like, it's not true. And I think it's put so much unnecessary pressure on people to be like, I cannot show that I'm experiencing grief, right? And I want to say that grief, of course, I think when we think about grief, I think a lot of the times, and sorry, my voice is a bit croaky, as you can imagine, I was, teaching today at school as well. But yeah, grief is not necessarily when we lose somebody that we love, right? And obviously that is something, when we lose somebody that we love, that is grief, right? And it's very hard and it's very challenging. And especially when it happens suddenly and in ways that we don't expect, it can be very hard. But grief can also be experienced in the small things of life. Let's say you are working towards a job and you didn't get the job, right? Or you are you thought that, I don't know, let's say, I know in the last life I gave this example, but let's say you want to be an engineer and your goal is to be in Formula One, and you work really hard, you do your 3 years of bachelor's, 1 years of master's, or 2 years of master's, and those 5 years, and you're impeccable in your academic score, and then you apply to be for Formula One, and you don't get in. You don't get in, and that may make you feel sad because you've invested 5 years for this goal and this dream that was not fulfilled, right? And that deserves your grief. That's worthy of your tears, right? We have to say this: anything that brings grief in our lives is worthy of our tears. And sometimes we may experience grief about something and other people don't. That doesn't mean that our grief is not valid. It doesn't mean that, because again, we have different experiences with different individuals. It doesn't mean that just because somebody else doesn't experience our grief, that our grief is not valid. That is not true, right? That is just not true. It's not how it is, right? I love this. Okay. Grief, I think, can be described as a roller coaster. I think grief described as a roller coaster, I think, is such a good analogy, right? Because sometimes we think that grief is just one emotion, right? Or it's just one thing that we experience because it's an event that we experience. So because grief is an event that we experience, we think that it also should be one single emotion that we experience. And I just don't think that is the case. And I found this very good image. I think it's AILC therapy, that they basically describe grief as a roller coaster, right? And in this roller coaster, as you can imagine, a roller coaster goes up and then down, and then it goes to the left and to the right, then under and up. And imagine that grief, that I should say that each kind of turn, or that each rise and each fall, it's a different emotion. Let's say that you're on a roller coaster, and the flat place where you are, when you obviously get on the roller coaster, that's called acceptance. And then you go up the roller coaster, and that's longing. And then you go down, and that's like depression. And then you go to the right, and that's rejection. And then you go down, and that's love. And then you go to the left, and it's peace. And then you go back to this place where you obviously get off the roller coaster, but it's that place which we said in the beginning was acceptance, right? And so when we go to this roller coaster, we're going through this series of emotions, right, that is taking place. And that's, I think, how it's such a good description for me about grief, because in grief we get to experience a whole spectrum of emotions, right? Not just a single one, but in grief we experience a whole spectrum, right, of emotions. And again, that could be acceptance, it could be sadness and longing. And again, of course, let me know what you think. What are the emotions that come when you think about grief? I said some things like acceptance and longing and sadness and so on. What do you experience? What do you think are some of the emotions that come with grief? Or maybe you have experienced, right? And when we feel grief, as I said before, sometimes we feel healed and sometimes we don't, right? We're feeling down. We feel crushed. We're feeling down. We feel crushed. We may think that we should have moved on, but we haven't moved on. And because we haven't moved on, we feel that, that guilt and that confusion. Sometimes when we experience grief, and one day we feel good and the other day we don't, there's this confusion that comes. We're like, well, haven't I moved on? And your body's like, no, actually, we haven't moved on yet. There's still some processing that needs to take place, right? And I would say that sometimes grief is almost like you're living in a new reality. Like grief is almost like you're living in a new reality, right? And the image I have in my mind, right, is like, imagine this. Imagine there is a boyfriend and a girlfriend. They've been dating for a while, right? They've been dating for um sorry, just checking the chat. Imagine there's a boyfriend or girlfriend, right? They've been dating for, let's say, 1.5 years and or 3 years, right? And all of a sudden they break up for whatever reason. And let's say the guy initiates and they break up, and there is some understanding, but obviously there is also a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, right? Because 1.5 years is a long time. And then obviously the lady, let's say they've lived in the same city and she goes through the same places she has been with the person. Maybe she goes to the bakery and she looks inside and she remembers when she used to sit with her ex-boyfriend now, and they used to share and laugh and just have this good time. And inside she feels sad, right? Because she remembers the moments, or even you can say her body remembers these moments, right? And then she goes to the cinema and she obviously remembers the times when they used to watch his best movie, which was, I don't know, Avengers Endgame or whatever, you know what I mean? Um, and then she goes to the Italian place where he used to love eating spaghetti, and every time she goes by, she remembers those moments, right? And she remembers these times. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and I think it's not right to assume that grief is just gonna go away immediately. And it's like, it may be that and it's, I think, a better description of it is a new reality. So every time you go to these places, you remember. And in the initial stages of the breakup, that could maybe take 3 months or 4 months or 5 months or 5 weeks or whatever, a year. And certain emotions would come up every time you go through those places. And that's absolutely normal because you have a history and memories and experiences with that individual, right? Um, yeah. And that's important. And over time, I think a healthy overcoming, I should say, with grief, is that we go through, remember, the roller coaster of emotions, and we allow ourselves to feel everything that we are experiencing, right? All the rejection. And I think in the initial stages of grief, we will experience disappointment, we will experience rejection, and that's okay, right? It's okay. And these are very strong emotions, but we can overcome it. And maybe there's some of you are watching today and you are like, you've experienced grief, you've experienced rejection, you've experienced pain, and let me put it this way, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. Just like in the example I described, maybe the guy decided to break up with the girl because he had his own issues. But inevitably, pain was transferred as well. And what I want to say is this: you can overcome it. And I think grief is not something that we can necessarily heal. As I said before, I think the better description is that. Oh, sorry, Finn. Can you elaborate? What is BPD? Do you mind just putting the full name? Awesome, thank you. And it's like, it's a new reality, right? It's something that we're gonna live with. Okay. But what is the beautiful thing about, and again, I think, and I have to say this because I think borderline personality disorder, um, again, as I said, Finda, I think, so just to answer this and then I want to go on. Sorry, I'll just finish my point here and then I'm going to come back to you. Is that okay? I'm not ignoring the question. But I think looking at grief as a new reality is a better perspective, because it doesn't mean you get healed, but you learn to live with it. But not in a way where living with it is like it's a drag and it's painful, and maybe it is, right? But living with it, in a sense that it doesn't prevent you from living the fullness of the life you've called to live, right? And I want to say to people, and I know, thank you, Finda, for sharing, about having certain mental health issues. And I want to say, just because you have an issue like this, it doesn't mean you're less loved. It doesn't mean you're less valued. It doesn't mean any of that. And I think the beautiful thing, and again, I as a Christian, I believe, God has made us in his image. The beautiful thing that we have as people is that we can create a new reality. I want you to sit down with that thought. You can create a new reality. Meaning, in the example I gave with the boyfriend and girlfriend, the boyfriend broke up. This girl, when she goes to the same places that she used to go with her ex-boyfriend, to the bakery, to the cinema, to the restaurant, and it used to bring these emotions of pain and longing and acceptance, the roller coaster of emotions. And now she can go to these places. She can look at our restaurant and she can be like, that was an amazing time together. And I have new dreams. I know God has something better for me. I know God has something better. And what you can do is you can replace those moments with another dream. And you can be like, well, I'm gonna have another guy and I'm gonna make new memories. Or I'm gonna start from now making new memories. And I'm gonna be thankful for the journey and what I experienced, but now I'm gonna experience something new. And again, you can create these new bercita, as you can see, as you say in Bahasa Indonesia, right? You can create these new memories and these new realities. And that's exactly, you can create a new reality that doesn't trump necessarily the old one, but it's on top of the old one. It doesn't mean you don't have the memories of the old one, but it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't stop you from being the man or woman you're supposed to become, right? So just to go back to Finna's question, can you overcome personality disorder? Again, as I said before, I'm not a therapist. I'm not sure about the scientific reasoning. I'm a chemist. I do chemistry, but I don't know when it comes to personality disorder. I don't know if there is a even if it's genetic, if it's something that could be acquired, and if it's something that's affected by the environment, are the environmental factors responsible for it? If you minimize those, does this go away? I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. But what I guess what I can say is that maybe what you can learn is to live with it. Because I'm suspected to have ADHD, right? And ADHD, of course, there's no cure about it, for example. But again, for me, it's like, I don't despise it, but it's more I've learned to appreciate my way of thinking. And I know that my way of thinking is different, and it's not something that everyone can appreciate or understand. But I've learned to live with it and just know that I'm different. I think differently. I do things differently, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I've just learned to live with it and appreciate it. And I think you can probably think about that as well, that you may be different. Maybe your mental condition makes you different, but it doesn't make you less valuable. It doesn't make you less loved. And I think once you can understand it, like I've understood, like I'm a very fast thinker. I love pioneering, thinking of new things, and and so on. And I've just learned that that's a strength that if I didn't have ADHD, I wouldn't be able to actually have. And actually, I'm using that to go to orphanages and establish systems to help children and all of those things. And that's a blessing, right? So I've learned, in a sense, how to, and I'm still learning, I should say, how to take something like a mental health condition and actually turn it to my advantage. And obviously there are limitations with that, like I'm not very organized and things like that, but I've learned to live with it. And maybe, I don't know if that helps and encourages you, but I think one thing I want to say is that mental health conditions, or whatever condition you have, doesn't make you less valuable. You are equally as valuable before or after the condition. And that shouldn't minimize the way you walk in a room. It shouldn't minimize your anything, really. You are as loved with the condition than without the condition. And I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, and I mean you're loved by God, right? People may not see it, people may not appreciate it, but their value before the eyes of God hasn't changed. And I think for me, that's what always gives me strength to continue and move on, right? I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions. Please put them in the chat. I mean, there's so many things to say, but again, as I mentioned, I only want to spend this for 15 minutes on this. But what I want to say as well is this: grief, and I want to come back to what the topic is. Grief is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you love. Whew! Goodness. Grief is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you loved. Because grief actually shows that you cared. I'm going to sit on this one. Grief shows that you cared, and more than you cared, you loved. You loved. That's why you grieve. You grieve the job that you lost. You grieve the girlfriend, the boyfriend that you lost. You grieve when even bigger things like your spouse passed away, your friend passed away, your pet passed away, because you loved. And I think for something that you loved, that's worthy of your tears. No matter how big or small, and as I said before, no matter whether other people see it as big or small, if you loved it, it's worthy of your tears. I want to say that. I just want to sit with that, because I don't know, it just feels like sometimes we, pressured by society, pressured by our friends, pressured by whoever, it seems that the manly thing to do, and it's applicable for women as well, right, is don't show signs of grief or don't show signs of weakness. And it's like, no, me crying or me expressing my anger, I don't know, I go out and I don't know, I shout because I need to express it in some way. Obviously not hurting people, right? In expressing it in a neutral way shows that I loved. And I loved so much that my body needs to let it out, right? And I think thinking about it in this way, for me, brings freedom. And I think when it comes to grief, and again, if we take grief as a new reality, I think a person we can say who is healed, and again, don't get me wrong, healed still means you have the memories, you may still have the triggers or the emotions that come. But I think a healed person is the one who's gone through the roller coaster of emotion, as we described, the rejection, disappointment, the longing, the acceptance, the peace, the love, the confusion, the misunderstanding, and all the things. And they make it to the other side. And they're able to, because they've processed these emotions, right? They haven't ignored their body, and when they, and your body sometimes it wants to cry or release in some way, right? And they're able to look at that grief and they can make a new reality, new dreams, replace the old with the new dreams. And replace doesn't mean forget, but it means moving on. That's what I really feel about it. And Finda, thank you for sharing. This is wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, 20 years ago, your dad passed away. That must have been, well, I cannot imagine. I don't want to pretend I imagine, but that sounds horrible. Like, and it sucks as well that you've experienced this. And thank you for thank you so much for sharing this. This is so precious. um and thank you for sharing that even 20 years later you still grieve. And that's absolutely normal, because you loved like your dad. And sometimes, emotions just come up, or maybe you have this smell or this place that reminds you of your dad, and it just brings it up again, or brings it up in a different way. And it doesn't mean you're weak, it just means you loved, right? um so precious. Thank you so much for sharing. This is, yeah, thank you so much. This is so precious. um and I had a thought actually the other day. And again, maybe not everybody will agree, because again, as I've shared before, I'm a Christian and I'm sharing this from a Christian perspective. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't think we can be fully healed from grief in this life, because again, it's a new reality. And we can be 20 years grieving something and still things come up, right? And I just think the one thing that will heal grief completely, I think, for me, again, coming from a Christian and believing that, when we pass away from this earth, we go to heaven to be with Jesus. And it's the resurrection, it's that hope of the resurrection that we have. um and again, I think that's what, Jesus says when he says, your soul will turn into joy. When they saw him resurrected, that hope, and that everything will be restored. And I just think that, yeah, in heaven, when we experience that resurrection, grief is going to be eliminated. And again, I don't think the memory of our life here is going to be eliminated, but I think the pain and all those things, when we behold God and his beauty and his love, Jesus, I just think all that grief will go away. But until we're on this earth, we're going to experience it, and we may not heal from it just like you heal a disease, because I don't think grief is a disease, like it's a new reality. um yeah, but I just think the hope of the resurrection is the one that gives us, for me at least, gives me this knowledge and understanding and this hope that actually grief will end with the resurrection of, with our, resurrection and meeting Jesus face to face. um yeah, wow. This is some things I wanted to share. um as always, after the 15 minutes, well, it's been a lot more than 15 minutes, because I'm very not good at sticking with time. um I want now to go into our time of what I call encouragement statements. At the end of every teaching that I want to present, again, which comes most from my experience, I always want to leave you guys with encouraging statements, something that we can declare together, and something hopefully that will reprogram some of our thinking that was limiting, and some of our thinking that wasn't, um, which is limiting us from really being the full version of who we're supposed to be. So if you don't mind, I want you to repeat after me these declarations, these encouraging statements, um, which I really hope will give you a different understanding, but hopefully really boost you. And I mean from the inside, right? Um, yeah. So if you're ready, if you're siap, I want you to say this with me, right? If you cannot, because you're in an environment where there are many people, just say it in your heart, okay? But I want you to say it in whether that's aloud or in your heart. I think it's better to say it aloud, because I think, when we speak and we remember it better, and it just does something to our brain and allows us to come into our heart. But I want to say this. I'm always sharing 5 encouraging statements. Number 1, say this with me. Grief is a process, and I allow myself to move through it. I trust that I will create new dreams and a new reality for my life. Number 2, My grief is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that I have loved deeply. Number 3, God understands my pain and meets me in it. He stays with me. I am not alone. Number 4, I choose to believe. This process will strengthen me. Remember, not the grief, the process. Even if I cannot see it yet. Number 5, I'm supported. I have people who love me, and I allow myself to lean on them. This spoke to me. Well, this spoke to me, even though I wrote it. Praise the Lord. And I want to read you this. I just want to read you something. Hopefully it would encourage you, right? It says, surely the darkness shall fall upon me. Even the night shall be light about me. And I was just thinking, God is so good that even if darkness shall fall upon me, and I think grief I can describe almost like a cloud of darkness, right? The night shall be light to me. That's deep. That God can turn the darkness into light. And when we've gone through hard stuff, and we can go through the other side, but see the light, and we still have dreams, and we're more passionate, and we are more driven, and we are more loving. I mean, this, I believe, is a strong, and I would say a godly man or a woman. This is where I'm going to stop for today. Hi, who is it? Can2204. Hi. Hi. If you guys have any comments, anything you want to share, please let me know. I'd love to engage a bit with the chat before we end for today. Any comments, concerns? Hi, brother. Hi, Ken2204. Thank you guys for the gifts. You guys are awesome. Sending those roses in. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So precious. I'm good. I am good. How are you? How are you, Can224? I'm very good. Very tired, but very good. Yeah, a lot of working, as you know, with school, with kids, and I also go and visit different places, helping different people. So who is Can224? I actually don't know if that, maybe if I see. Oh, Odi-chan. No way, Odi-chan. Okay, I do remember. Hi, Odi-chan. How are you? Sorry, I couldn't see from the photo. No way. I'm so glad you joined this live. This is crazy. Because we definitely don't live in the same island. I live in Java. Crazy. Thank you so much for joining the live, Odi-chan. I hope you're doing well. Aku berharap kamu senang, kamu ya semoga berjalan dengan baik. Yeah, exciting. Thank you guys for joining. Hopefully when bahas Indonesia gets to point, I can do these lives in English. That would be awesome. Sorry, in Indonesian. But just as we're waiting, and obviously if you guys Triana Biarab. What does Triana mean? Biarab? SB? You mind letting me know? Triana Biarab. Yeah, please let me know. I don't exactly know what that means. Can you let me know? Orichan gak tahu ya. Aku sudah diajak tapi bulan Mei gak bisa. I don't know. Hopefully soon. I really don't know. Don't know when we come into Nias. Hopefully soon. But I hope everything is going well there. And I just wanted to share, guys, before just my exciting announcement. I said there will be an exciting announcement coming. Bukan. Pengumuman. I forgot the Indonesian word. Yeah, as you know, firstly, in May, 28th of May, obviously from 8 to 8:30, I think it's 20th of May. I need to double check. The last, let me actually double check. It's the last Thursday of every month. Yes, 28th of May, 8 to 8:30. We're gonna have our live again. Okay, so as you know, we're always gonna have our lives every last Thursday of every month from 8 to 8:30 WIB time. Okay, so make sure to be there. Make sure to share, like, subscribe. Please want to get this message out to as many people as we can. Create a safe place. We always talk about limiting beliefs, things that limit the beliefs that young adults have. Okay, so again, 28th of May, 8 to 8:30 is our next live. We want to equip you guys, give you the tools necessary where we can overcome the limiting beliefs that's holding you back to fulfill your purpose. Okay, so yeah, make sure to hit that follow button. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what is to come. And now, exciting announcement. So I really, from the month of January, I had this on my heart to do a special project, which I'm still undertaking, but I'm doing currently interviews with professionals in different spheres, okay, who are talking, we're discussing about limiting beliefs. And I'm gonna see some faces, which maybe some of you know, some famous, maybe some not. But I'm interviewing them specifically to talk about limiting beliefs. I'm interviewing therapists, I'm interviewing business leaders, I'm interviewing leaders in church settings, leaders also in orphanage settings, okay? But who are sharing, who are specializing or have a lot of experience in a certain limiting belief. So I've done an interview very recently where we talked about this very topic, about a very experienced person, a speaker, I think quite, maybe known, I would say, about grief. And it shared some really important insights, which I really encourage you guys when this interview drops. Hopefully, it will drop next week, 9th of May. Okay, it will drop full video, it will drop on YouTube. Shorts will be dropped throughout the whole week, hopefully next week. We're gonna hear some snippets, but the full interview will be dropped on 9th of May on YouTube. Healing with Rado, okay? The same handle as in TikTok that you can watch. But these interview guys are really for you to be equipped and overcome limiting beliefs and learn the tools you need to become prosperous, okay, in all that you do. So this is an exciting announcement. I have interviews happening next week, and I'll be doing quite a few, okay. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how you guys are gonna respond, and just really hope that it blesses you and really gives you the tools you need to become the man and women of God that you're supposed to be, with no limiting beliefs from childhood, friends, work, and things like that. Where are you now? I'm in Java, West Java. I'm in West Java, close to Jakarta. Not in Jakarta, but close to Jakarta. Good. Any last comments, guys? Anything? I know I've said that this is supposed to be from 8 to 8:30, and I haven't stuck to it for the last 4 times our fourth live. I need to try and do better. So we're gonna stop here. Thank you guys so much. I'm also streaming on YouTube, so if you have any friends who want to watch on YouTube or you want to watch on YouTube, please do. But thank you guys so much for joining today. I really hope you are blessed, encouraged. I hope you guys received and selamat malam for my Indonesian brothers and sisters, friends, family, and to everybody else, good evening from here. Okay, because it's 8, almost 9, 8:49. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Any other comments? Let me check. No other comments. Okay, excellent. Good. Thank you, guys. We're gonna stop here for today. Stay healthy. Always remember you're loved and you're valued. And I'm gonna keep obviously doing my regular posts once every day in TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. You can always reach out to me there by DMs. Okay, if you have any questions or you want anything to talk about. But thank you guys so much, and we'll see you live next month, 20th of May, 8 to 8:30. See you guys.